why we should refer Schedule 2 of the CGST Act and identify whether it is a supply of goods or services, whether it is taxable or not. So now it is very clear that this is a event which is taxable, and therefore after the amendment, all the judgments which were pronounced by the Honorable Supreme Court or several other high courts will stand nullified, and therefore from 1st July 2070, the question whether the concept of mutuality will still continue under GST or not. If any service is being provided by an association or trade or club to its members, whether that will be treated as a separate person and it will be taxable or not, is now answered by the government by way of this retrospective amendment, and therefore now it is going to be taxable. They have very much clarified that now it is going to be taxable, and they have also inserted an explanation. Now, if we use the rules of interpretation, we'll come to know that whenever any explanation is clarificatory in nature, it is a retrospective, or rather, it's effective retrospective. So, therefore, again, the explanation, although the subclause is added from retrospective effect, so therefore, the explanation is also having the retrospective effect, which very well clearly says that it is clarified that notwithstanding anything, meaning thereby that it is overriding all the provisions, notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, or any judgment, decree, or order. So, whatsoever has been written in any other law, whatsoever has been decided in any decree, irrespective of that, the person and its members or the constituents shall be deemed to be two different persons, even if it is specified in any order, even if it is specified in any law that members and the associations are one person, these are not two persons. So it will be treated as two different persons as per this explanation, and the supply of activities or the transactions inter se shall not be deemed to take place from one person to another person, meaning thereby the tax applicability would be there. Now moving to another section of proposed amendment, and please bear in mind, friends, these are the amendments which have been now assented by the Honorable President, and therefore it is now Finance Act 2021, and therefore it is now the part of Central Goods and Services Tax Act. But as we all are aware, that GST is a dual tax mechanism wherein not only the state has the say, and therefore we comply with two rules, two laws. One is Central Goods and Services Tax Act, and the other is State Goods and Services Tax Act. Therefore, it needs to be all the amendments needs to be proposed in the State Assembly, and there from there it needs to be ratified and approved by the State Assembly. Once that is done, it will be said that even the state acts have ratified the amended provisions, and once it is done, then they will come out with a notification for the implementation of a particular provision. So till the date the notification comes, please don't assume that these amended provisions are made applicable or are implemented. So therefore, please bear in mind, नोटिफिकेशन आएगा, नोटिफिकेशन आने तक आपको वेट करना है. नोटिफिकेशन में इफेक्टिवनेस का डेट लिखा होगा कि कौन सी डेट से ये नोटिफिकेशन या ये प्रोविजन एप्लीकेबल है, एंड अकॉर्डिंगली यू विल हैव टू comply with the law. Moving further, Section 16. Now, as we all are aware, Section 16 is one of the most important sections, and all those who have heard me ever, who have watched my videos, or who have listened to me are aware that I always say that Section 16 is the backbone of GST. Input tax credit is the backbone of GST, and one of the most important and prominent reasons why the GST has been implemented in our country. So now they are coming out with a very important amendment, rather I would say a draconian amendment, which may not be holding good in the eyes of constitution, but time will tell. I'm not the right person to comment on that. But yes, I can very well share my views when given the opportunity of coming to this forum and sharing my views. So I am of the view that this is not going to hold good in the eyes of constitution. But anyways, let us first understand what is the provision that they are proposing to be inserted as again subclass AA to section 16 subsection 2. Now friends, just give me 2 minutes to give a background of this. We all are aware that section 16 subsection 1 speaks about the eligibility. When you are eligible to claim the input tax credit, there are conditions which are: you must be registered, you must have procured the goods or services, and such procurements must be used or intended to be used in course or furtherance of business. So these are the conditions which you must be satisfying for the purpose of being eligible to claim the input tax credit. But there is another subsection which has an overriding impact. And what is that section? That section is section 16 subsection 2. It is an overriding section. It starts with notwithstanding anything contained in this section, meaning thereby it makes it very clear that if anything is written in any part of this section, that is going to be overridden, by this particular subsection. So section 16 subsection 2 was providing four conditions for claiming the input tax credit under GST law. One, that you must have an invoice. Two, that you must have received the goods or services. Three, that whatever credit you are taking as a provisional credit, the supplier must have paid the taxes on that. Four, you must have filed the return. These are the four conditions, or these were the four conditions which you were supposed to satisfy so as to make yourself eligible to claim the input tax credit. Now, by way of this amendment, they are inserting a subclause after subclause A, subclause AA, wherein they are inserting a condition wherein you do not have any control. Please appreciate, पहले जो third condition था that the supplier must have paid, it is already under challenge before various high courts of the country. You all might be aware that there were judgments in VAT era wherein the courts have said that if purchaser has paid the tax and he has made the purchases bona fide, then in that case, even if the supplier does not pay or the seller does not pay the tax, the purchaser has no responsibility, or the department cannot come to the purchaser and ask for the payment of such kind of tax which the supplier has not paid. So therefore the same analogy should apply in GST also. See what my supplier is doing, I don't have any control on that. Practically what is happening is they are uploading GSTR1 wherein they are showing my invoice. My invoice is being reflected in GSTR2B. I'm taking credit on the basis of that. And then thereafter the department alleges that the person on whose invoice you have availed the credit has not made the payment of tax. Now forget about whether they have the mechanism of invoice matching, how they can comment that tax has been paid or not. I'm not going into all that because that is a dispute, and that is something which will take its own time, and we have our limited time for the deliberation today, so I'll not be going into that. But the important aspect is that something which is not in my hands. In my hands, what I can do is I can ask the supplier to show my supplies. So whatever he has supplied to me, he has to show that, and therefore I have verified that he has shown in GST 2A and 2B. Once it is done, I am comfortable and I take that credit. Now, after 2 years or 3 years, the department comes and alleges that he might have shown that, but he has not paid the tax. I don't think that this becomes my responsibility to pay the tax, and therefore I should not be made or compelled to reverse the input tax credit on that invoice, wherein the department is saying that the supplier has not made the payment of tax. तो ऐसा तो है ही नहीं साहब, कैसे प्रूव करेंगे? So therefore there were judgments. So this provision that the supplier must have paid the tax is already under challenge before various high courts of the country. I have also challenged before various high courts, even including Bombay High Court. So let us not go into that. But what they are intending to do now, again, I will give a brief background of from where it is coming. You might have read Rule 36, Sub Rule 4. Rule 36, Sub Rule 4, and I'm sure you might have complied with that rule also. What is that rule? That rule provides that rule provides that if you have purchased, let's say, worth 1 crore, and you have a credit eligibility, again, an average of, let's say, 12 lakhs. But in your GSTR 2A, it is only being reflected as 50 lakhs as your purchases and 6 lakhs as your credit. Rule 36.4, when it was implemented, when it was introduced by virtue of 9 bar 2019, 49 bar 2019, from 9th October 2019, the rule says that whatever is your eligible credit being reflected in GSTR 2A, 20% of that credit extra can be taken for the invoices which is not being reflected in GSTR 2A. So in my example, 6 lakhs was the credit which was being reflected. 12 lakhs was the actual credit that I ought to have taken. So therefore, as per rule 36 sub rule 4, 6 lakhs plus 20% of 6 lakhs, that is 1 lakh 20,000. So 7 lakh 20,000 was the maximum credit which was allowed to me as per the rule. Now they have amended, they further have amended the rule, made it 10%. Then from 1st January, if I'm not wrong, 1st January 2021, they have made it 5%. Now, by way of this amendment, if I'm not wrong and I should not be held wrong, that they intend to make it, I'm again repeating my words very cautiously, I'm using these words, they intend to make it 0%, meaning thereby if any supplies or any invoices on which you have availed the credit is not being reflected by the supplier, then in that case, now you will not be eligible to claim that credit. Up till now, it was 20%, 10%, and 5%. Now it is going to be 0% after the insertion of this particular subclause AA to section 16, subsection 2. Let us try to understand what does this clause says. It says the details of the invoice or debit note referred to in clause A has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supplies, and such details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note in the manner specified under section 37. So, what does it mean? It means that you will not be eligible to claim the credit unless the details of the invoice or the debit note on which you are or for which you are availing the credit has been furnished in the statement of outward supplies of the supplier. वो जब तक आपको नहीं दिखाएगा तब तक वो क्रेडिट आप क्लेम नहीं कर सकते. सो नाउ दे आर रिस्ट्रिक्टिंग इट to 0%. You will not be eligible to claim the credit if the invoice is not being reflected in whatever form, that is GSTR 1 or GSTR 2, GSTR 2A or GSTR 2B. They will not allow you to claim input tax credit at all. Now, so far as my view is concerned, whether this provision is a right provision or not, I'll just add two things. Rule 36, Sub Rule 4 was introduced on 9th October 2019. On 15th October 2019, I challenged the provision, but unfortunately, due to this continuous COVID effect and the closure of the courts, the order could not be pronounced. The matter has been heard. I'm repeating, Rule 36, Sub Rule 4 challenge matter has been heard before the Honorable Gujarat High Court on 10th December 2020. It was final hearing. The order is reserved to be pronounced, and we can expect the order any day after the vacation. So once the vacation is over on, let's say, on 10th of June, and if the things are pretty okay. Like nowadays, the things are very bad. It's very, very scary. And you all are belonging to Mumbai, if I'm not wrong, then वहाँ तो और भी ज़्यादा खराब हैं चीज़ें. गुजरात में भी खराब हैं, बट बॉम्बे में ज़्यादा खराब हैं. Now the things are improving day by day, and we can expect that by the June first week or second week, the things will be much better. And once that is the situation, the courts will start functioning. And once the courts restart functioning, I'm sure that very soon we'll be seeing the order with regards to the challenge of constitutionality and the validity of Rule 36 sub Rule 4. So department was or the government was cautious. They were aware that this provision is challenged before various high courts by various advocates, various trade professionals, and the business forums. So therefore, appreciating a fact that yes, Rule 36 sub Rule 4 was a backdoor entry, it is overriding, it is not in line with the provisions of the Act, they have now amended the Act, or they are now proposing to amend the Act. Thankfully, this provision is not proposed to be inserted from 1st July 2017, and therefore, if Rule 36 sub Rule 4 is struck down by the honorable courts, it will hold good till this clause is inserted. Once this clause is inserted, whether we are going to challenge this clause or not, that is not an issue. That is a different issue altogether. What I mean to say is 36 sub Rule 4 का ऑर्डर अगर आ जाता है और वो स्ट्राइक डाउन किया जाता है, और लेट से ये जो रूल है वो 1 अप्रैल 2022 से, ये जो अमेंडमेंट है 1 अप्रैल 22 से वो इम्प्लीमेंट होता है, तो 31 मार्च 2022 तक एटलीस्ट वी विल हैव ब्रीदर that we are not supposed to comply with Rule 36 sub Rule 4. And this is a much better provision because Rule 36 sub Rule 4 was impracticable because कौन सी इनवॉइस का डेटा नहीं आया, कौन से का कब आया, कौन जीएसटीआर 2 में किस कब रिफ्लेक्ट हुआ, all those trails were supposed to be maintained, which was impracticable or which was very difficult for all of us to do. But nevertheless, after this amendment, nothing such things has to be maintained. Whatever is being reflected into it, just take credit of that. Although this is also a bad provision, it also needs to be challenged, but it is better than Rule 36 sub Rule 4. So whatever will happen is going to happen for good, and I'm very sure that Gujarat High Court is certainly going to strike down Rule 36 sub Rule 4. Let us wait and watch. This is not the right time to say that because I am the person who has argued the provision, and मुझे तो हमेशा ऐसा ही लगेगा कि शायद ये जजमेंट मेरे फेवर में आएगा, बट लेट अस वेट एंड वॉच. Now, moving to next section of Finance Act 2021, it is section 110. Section 110 specified that in section 35 of the CGST Act, the following, sorry, subsection 5 shall be omitted. Now, this may not be liked by most of the professionals because this was a clause 5 of section 35, which was giving us a scope of audit. Section 35 subsection 5 was giving us a scope of audit in a way that if the turnover exceeds a prescribed limit, then the taxable person or the registered person was supposed to get himself audited by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant. Now they are proposing to omit this particular section. See, it depends how we take it. I'm not the right person to add my views into it, but all those who have listened to me earlier or have watched my video, I was very blunt from day one, even before the implementation of GST when I was interpreting rule section 35.5. Even being in the committee, we used to have discussions when we were designing the forms or suggesting on the forms for the GST audits. And I'm remembering very clearly that few of the committee members, senior members, were having the clear view that if we as professionals are not able to satisfy the expectations of the government from this clause, that is the audit, they might delete this provision because they already have a separate provision for conducting the audit themselves. Or if they want some audit to be conducted by a professional, they also have a section for that. Section 65 deals with the tax authorities conducting audit, and section 66 deals with the special audit by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant. So these provisions were already there. So we always had a fear in our mind that if our fellow professionals are not able to comply with or meet the expectations of the government, then might delete or omit the provisions of GST audit in all cases. So therefore, what they have done is they have omitted it. On the contrary, as a chartered accountant, as a practicing lawyer, I am of the view that this is also an amendment which is going to help us a lot. It is going to be like initially अपने को लगता है ना कि initially तो ये खराब provision है, बिकॉज एक एक जो हमारा लेट्स से 50 ऑडिट अगर हम करते थे तो 50 ऑडिट चला गया, हमारे रेवेन्यू पे इम्पैक्ट आएगा. बट एट द सेम टाइम यू आर कैरिंग लॉट ऑफ risk while signing those audits, irrespective of the fact that the government was saying that it is not an audit, it is a reconciliation. But still, when you were signing Part B of GSTR 9C, it was not reconciliation, it was a certification, it was an audit. And therefore, you were always at risk. Now, the department has amended it, or the government has amended Section 44 to an extent which is going to be a blessing in disguise. 35(5) चला गया, लेकिन आपका स्कोप उन्होंने सेक्शन 44 से बढ़ा दिया. और नाउ द नेक्स्ट अमेंडमेंट विच वी आर गोइंग टू डिस्कस इज सेक्शन 44, amendment in section 44 which deals with the annual return part, and they have made this amendment beautifully, which certainly I am of the belief is going to help us. So section 111, section 111 of the Finance Act 2021, what does it say? It says every registered person other than input service distributor, a person paying tax under section 51 or 52, a casual taxable person, and a non-resident taxable person. These are the five persons who are now not included, and rather though those were never included in this. Shall furnish an annual return which may include, now this is very very important, which may include a self-certified reconciliation statement. Self-certified reconciliation statement reconciling the value of supplies declared in the return furnished for the financial year with the audited annual financial statement for every financial year electronically within such time and in such form and in such manner as may be prescribed. So if we can apply our mind, if we can compare with the earlier provision, what was the earlier provision? Earlier provision tha 44(1) that you are supposed to file annual return barring these five people. 44(2) that along with that annual return a reconciliation statement needs to be filed. That was the provision earlier. Now what they have done is they have said they have merged both section 44(1) and 44(2), and it is for our good. Now what they are saying कि आपको एनुअल रिटर्न के साथ में रिकंसिलेशन स्टेटमेंट सेल्फ सर्टिफाइड फर्निश करना है. So now the risk goes, the risk is now of the taxpayer. So therefore, he will never be in a position. See, this is country India. Even for income tax return to be filed, wherein everything is known, everything is transparently clear. The assessee is also aware that this is how the tax is calculated. He has Form 16 in his hands, but still he hands over Form 16 to a chartered accountant, to a cost accountant, or to an advocate for getting it filed. The point which I am trying to make is that when a self certified reconciliation statement is to be filed, as per the amended provisions of the law, the assessee is never going to file it on his own. He will always be requiring a professional who will get involved, who will verify whatever figures and facts is being reflected. He will prepare the reconciliation statement as he was doing earlier before this amendment, and the difference would be that now he is not supposed to sign it. The taxpayer, the assessee will sign it. So therefore, I am of the belief that you are not at all impacted, rather your scope is increased and your liability and risk has reduced. So please take this amendment positively, that your audit has gone, but self certification and self certified reconciliation statement is much bigger scope than what we have in 35.5. Provided that the commissioner may, on the recommendation of the council by notification, exempt any class of registered persons from filing annual return under this section. This was earlier also. They can come out with certain टर्नओवर्स कि भाई 1 करोड़ से नीचे का, 5 करोड़ से नीचे का, 2 करोड़ से नीचे का टर्नओवर होगा तो यू आर नॉट सपोज टू फाइल द एनुअल रिटर्न्स or the self-certified reconciliation statements. But annual return, as per me, may not be exempted for many, may not be having the uh, effect of turnover. So annual return सबको file करना ही पड़ेगा. They may come out with the prescribed rules wherein they can say if your turnover is less than this, then you may not be required to file the self-certified reconciliation statement. Provided further that nothing contained in this section shall apply to a department of the central government or a state government or a local authority whose books of accounts are subject to audit by the C&AG or the auditor appointed for auditing the accounts of local authorities under any law for the time being enforced. This was the provision earlier also, and they are continuing with the same कि जहाँ पे C&AG audit करता है कोई government departments का, there you are not required to go and conduct the audits. Now again, a welcome, very welcome amendment which was disputed, section 50. From day one, we were disputing this section, that whether the interest under GST is leviable on the gross amount or the net amount. When I say gross amount, it means that, let's say I have filed, when the interest is leviable, when I have delayed the filing of return, and when I will delay the filing of return, even the credit availment will be delayed, because 3B ही मैकेनिज्म है, एंड 3B के अंदर जब तक मैं 3B नहीं भरूंगा तब तक वो क्रेडिट भी मेरा रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं होगा या क्रेडिट भी मेरा अवेल नहीं होगा. So let us take an example that I was having a liability of 1 crore. I was having a credit of 90 lakhs. Now I have delayed the filing of return by 15 days. So what the department was contending in section 50 subsection 1 was कि आपने 15 दिन का डिले किया है तो आपको इंटरेस्ट 10 लाख पे नहीं 1 करोड़ पे लगेगा, बिकॉज आपने 90 लाख रुपीज का पेमेंट भी या क्रेडिट भी आपने स्क्वायर ऑफ नहीं किया है, इसलिए आपका पास हम ये एज्यूम करेंगे आपकी लाइबिलिटी 1 करोड़ है तो आपको 1 करोड़ पे लगेगा. हमारा ये इंटेंशन था, हमारा कंटेंशन था टैक्स पेयर्स का, नो, it will be applicable on 10 lakhs, not on 1 crore. So these were the two aspects wherein we were fighting. The government intervened. They came out with a clarification earlier by way of a press release. In GST Council meeting, they have discussed, but there were orders which were against the taxpayers, wherein it was clearly said कि नहीं press release से नहीं होगा, it needs to be amended in law. So they came out with an amendment. The amendment was proposed and it was approved also. It was made applicable also from September 20, I believe. But the amendment was not made retrospective as per the commitment of the Honorable Finance Minister. So now they are proposing to amend the subsection 1 of section 50 by way of insertion of this proviso, which is already there, but now making this effective from 1st July 2017. तो 1 जुलाई 2017 से इस प्रोवाइजो को वो लोग री-इंसर्ट कर रहे हैं. I would say they are substituting, they are re-inserting this proviso, and the date from which it will be effective would be 1st July 2017. Now, friends, I am still of the view that this proviso also will be challenged before the honorable courts. Rather, it is challenged before the honorable Gujarat High Court already. But let us try to understand what does they say. At least they are now providing relief to the taxpayers. There are still ifs and buts in this amendment also. Provided that the interest on tax payable in respect of supplies made during a tax period and declared in the return for the set period furnished after the due date in accordance with the provisions of section 39, except where such return is furnished after the commencement of any proceedings under section 73 or 74 in respect of such period, shall be payable on that portion of the tax which is paid by debiting the electronic cash ledger. So now they have clarified. Now they are saying कि 1 करोड़ रुपए का आपका लाइबिलिटी था, 90 lakhs का आपका क्रेडिट था, 10 lakhs you have paid out of electronic cash ledger. So therefore we'll levy interest on only that 10 lakhs whatever has been paid from electronic cash ledger. But now they have inserted an embargo to this, wherein now they are saying कि unless there are any proceedings pending under section 73 or 74, मीनिंग देयर बाई अगर आपके अगेंस्ट में कोई सेक्शन 73 74 में प्रोसीडिंग्स पेंडिंग है, तो उस केस में आपको ग्रॉस पे टैक्स लगेगा, ग्रॉस पे इंटरेस्ट लगेगा, ना कि नेट पे। अगर आपकी कोई प्रोसीडिंग पेंडिंग नहीं है तो आपको नेट पे टैक्स लगेगा। दिस हैज इट्स ओन रिपरकशंस, it has its own issues, and therefore we'll have to interpret this that still the problem is not resolved completely, because 73 74 की प्रोसीडिंग्स कब पेंडिंग है, दैट इन इटसेल्फ इज अ क्वेश्चन। अगर वो आपके को एक समन दे देते हैं तो क्या 73 की प्रोसीडिंग्स पेंडिंग है? एज पर मी नो, बिकॉज दिस द proceeding will be said to be pending under section 73 or 74 once the show cause notice is issued. So if they visit your premises for, let's say, some investigation or inspection, that will not tantamount to a proceeding pending under section 73 or 74. A proceeding will be said to be pending under section 73 or 74 as per my views once the show cause notice is issued by the government. So this again is going to create a lot of dispute. Let us see how the law evolves. Moving to next section of Finance Act 2021, section 113. Now, what they are doing is, in explanation 1 to section 74, they are making an amendment wherein the words were section 122, 125, 129, and 130. Now they are restricting it only to two sections, which is section 122 and 125. Section 129 and 130 is being deleted. And what was this explanation providing? This explanation was providing that if you make any payment as per the provisions of section 74, all the other proceedings will be concluded. सो मीनिंग देयर बाई अगर आप 74 में 15% पेनल्टी भर देते हैं, टैक्स भर देते हैं और इंटरेस्ट भर देते हैं, तो आपकी बाकी जो भी प्रोसीडिंग्स रहती हैं वो सारी कंक्लूड हो जाती हैं, चाहे वो 122 की हो, 125 की हो, फिर वो पैरेलल सेपरेट प्रोसीडिंग्स नहीं चलती। बट नाउ एज पर आफ्टर दिस अमेंडमेंट, if there are any proceedings under section 129 and 130, that will continue even after you get the case concluded under section 74. I hope you all are clear. अब आप 15% पेनल्टी भी भर देते हैं, टैक्स भी भर देते हैं, इंटरेस्ट भी भर देते हैं, उसके बाद भी 129 130 की प्रोसीडिंग्स आपके अगेंस्ट में चालू रहेगी। 122 और 125 यानी जो जनरल पेनल्टी है और ऑफेंसेस के लिए पेनल्टीज है, that will come to an end, that will be concluded. Section 75, this is again a welcome statement and welcome move. Again, a decision of the Madhya Pradesh High Court was there. Because of that decision, or taking the positivity of that judgment, this amendment has been proposed. See, we have a provision section 75 subsection 12 which says कि अगर आपका कोई लाइबिलिटी एडमिटेड है, आपने रिटर्न में दिखाया है, and you have paid or unpaid that, like it is a partially paid liability or it's completely unpaid liability, but the return has been filed, you have accepted the liability in the return that you have filed. In that case, there is no requirement for issuance of any show cause notice. There will not be any show cause notice issued by the government, by the department. They can directly recover the tax under section 79. तो डायरेक्टली रिकवरी इनिशिएट कर सकता है, उसको कोई भी किसी भी तरीके का कोई शोकॉज नोटिस देने का रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है. दैट वाज द प्रोविजन. देयर वाज ऑलवेज अ डाउट दैट how it is to be concluded that what amount is expected or what amount is presumed that has been declared as payable. So now in explanation they have inserted it that whatever you declare in section 37 statement of outward supplies, even that amount will be presumed that it is your accepted liability. Let me give an example. बहुत लोग क्या करते थे, जीएसटीआर वन में 1 करोड़ का लायबिलिटी दिखाते थे, so that every invoice is being reflected to the recipient and he is also claiming the credit. This was how the fraud was happening. So they were showing 1 crore as their liability, whereas they, since the invoice matching and all those things are not there, the automation is not there, and GSTR 3B is the summary return which is which is supposed to be filed manually, और if nowadays GSTR 1 से फिगर आ जाती है तो वो भी एडिट हो जाती है. So I have declared 1 lakh only in my GSTR 3B. So in GSTR 1 1 करोड़ की क्रेडिट मैंने बांट दी सारे मेरे रेसिपिएंट्स को, और GSTR 3B में केवल 1 लाख रुपए का टैक्स भरा, या लेट से 1 लाख में से भी 50 का भरा, 50 का आउटस्टैंडिंग है, तो 75/12 50,000 के लिए लगेगा जो आउटस्टैंडिंग है, या वो जो 99 लाख रुपए का गैप था उसके लिए लगेगा. यानी आपका 1 करोड़ की लाइबिलिटी में ओनली 50,000 इज व्हाट यू हैव पेड. सो वेदर 75/12 will be 50,000 or 99 lakhs 50,000. So the now after the amendment, it is going to be 99 lakhs 50,000, which they have clarified. So let me read this. For the purpose of this subsection, the expression self-assessed tax shall include the tax payable in respect of details of outward supplies furnished under section 37, but not included in the return furnished under section 39. So now it is being made very clear, if you have shown something in your statement of outward supplies, but you have not included in the return that you are filing, then in that case, the amount will be considered to be a self-assessed tax, and the recovery will be initiated for the total amount and not for the amount which is being reflected in GSTR 3B as your outstanding liability. Now, I feel that this provision is redundant absolutely. Why I am saying so? The reason is, हमारे इंडिया में जीएसटी लॉ बहुत अलग अलग लोग बना रहे हैं. एक तो जीएसटी लॉ पार्लियामेंट में बना, जीएसटी काउंसिल ने बनाया. एक जीएसटी लॉ है जो रूल्स है, और एक जीएसटी लॉ है जीएसटीएन का, एक जीएसटी लॉ है ऑफिसर्स का. So the GSTN also has its own law which they are putting on the portal. Even if filing of return as per this clause, if you read this clause cautiously, you will come to know that filing of return is permissible with outstanding liability also. There is no restriction per se. But GSTN is not allowing you to file returns with outstanding liability. And therefore, unless you pay the tax, whatever you declare in the return, you are not allowed to file the return. So where is the question of having the outstanding liability and recovery of the tax payable as per the self-assessed tax? I don't think that there is any chance, any possibility of this. Are you getting the question? आप रिटर्न ही नहीं भर सकते अगर पेमेंट के बिना, तो ये क्वेश्चन ही कहाँ अराइज होता है कि आपने पेबल करके भर दिया होगा और अब शोकॉज नोटिस विल नॉट बी इशूड or should not be served on you directly. Recovery can be done under section 79. There is no question of it, because unless you are allowed to file a return with the outstanding or partial liability, there may not be any question, there cannot be any question of recovering the tax payable as per the self-assessed tax in the return which is filed under section 39, because the return cannot be filed under section 39 with the partial payment or outstanding liability. So therefore this section seems to be redundant, or the procedure which is there in GSTN seems to be in contravention of the provisions of the GST Act. ऐसा जीएसटी काउंसिल की मीटिंग में भी उन्होंने एडमिट किया है when they were discussing about the interest part and all. But I have very limited time today, and as I have said that I have already a commitment, so therefore I will not be stretching more into that. Moving to the next provision. Now this is a draconian amendment, I would say. And please bear in mind, friends, this is real draconian. And now even the Honorable Supreme Court has admitted Even Honorable Supreme Court in Radhakrishnan Industries versus State of Himachal Pradesh have commented very, very that some provisions of the GST law in nature, the way and the manner in which the GST was supposed to be implemented in the country has not been done properly, and the way and the manner it is being implemented and the officers are using the powers is making the GST law a draconian law. This is the statement of Honorable Justice Chandrachud. I'm fortunate enough that I was a part of that particular arguments. I like not this judgment, but I was available in the court when this judgment was, or when this matter was being argued. So court was very, very annoyed with the manner in which the officers are using their powers. And unfortunately, now the powers are made so broad under GST law that every assessee, not only every assessee, but also a person who is a beneficiary or a person who has abated to that particular offense may have to face the consequence, and he may have to face the provisional attachments under section 83. Now first let us try to understand what is the provision of section 83 as of now, then we'll go to understand the provision of section 83 post amendment, and then we'll try to understand the impact of this particular amendment. See, as today section 83 says that if there are any proceedings pending under few sections, that is 62, 63, 64, 67, 73, 74, if any of these sections have any proceedings pending, let's say against me, and the commissioner is of the opinion that so as to safeguard the interest of revenue, it is necessary to attach the property on a provisional basis, including my bank account, then he may do so. So, the important aspect is that the commissioner, who is the top authority, top official, must have the opinion, must have the understanding and feeling that the properties of this person needs to be attached, which is necessary to be attached so as to protect the interest of revenue. बट हो क्या रहा है, इवन जॉइंट कमिश्नर भी उसको कर देता है. There is a judgment of Bombay High Court, Pranjal, I'll inform you, I'll let you know, wherein Joint Commissioner has taken this step and he has attached the properties, including the bank account. But law never contemplates. It clearly says that commissioner must have view. कमिश्नर को ओपिनियन लेना है, उसको रिटर्न में व्यू लेना है कि क्या रीजन है, क्यों वो ये डिसीजन ले रहा है कि ये नेसेसरी है अटैचमेंट करना. उसके बाद वो उसको नीचे परकुलेट कर सकता है, नीचे अपने जूनियर को बोल सकता है कि दिस इज अ डिसीजन व्हिच आई हैव टेकन, नाउ गो एंड अटैच हिज प्रॉपर्टीज एंड बैंक अकाउंट. This, but the decision will have to be taken by the commissioner. It cannot be anyone else. So what was the provision? That there should be any proceeding pending under section 62, 63, 64, 67, 73 and 74. इन 6 में से कोई भी सेक्शन में प्रोसीडिंग पेंडिंग होगा तो प्रोविजनल अटैचमेंट हो सकता है. नाउ विद दिस बैकग्राउंड, नाउ ट्राई टू रीड एंड अंडरस्टैंड द अमेंडेड प्रोविजन. रादर दिस इज, अगर ये प्रोविजन को ठीक से हैंडल नहीं किया गया तो इट विल क्रिएट अ हैवोक इन द मार्केट, बिकॉज आई हैव कम थ्रू not less than 300 cases, not less than 300 cases of provisional attachments, जहाँ पे डिपार्टमेंट every now and then with their own whims and fancies have attached the bank accounts, attached the properties of the taxpayers, or not only the taxpayers but also of the third persons. इवन मैं हूं, अगर मेरा कोई पेमेंट बाकी है या मेरे ऊपर कोई एलिगेशंस हैं, तो मेरे सप्लायर का भी बैंक अकाउंट उन्होंने अटैच कर दिया या मेरे रिसिपिएंट का भी, जिससे मेरे बैंकिंग ट्रांजेक्शन्स थे। आपका ही बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट का जजमेंट है कैश इम्पैक्ट्स, कैश इम्पैक्ट्स के अंदर सेम यही था कि किसी थर्ड पार्टी का बैंक अकाउंट उन्होंने अटैच कर दिया ऑन द एलिगेशन दैट यू हैव अ बिजनेस रिलेशन, यू हैव banking relations and your banking transactions with this third person, and therefore the property of his also needs to be attached, which was struck down by the honorable court. But still they are harassing you in that fashion. Now after this amendment, they have the powers which is multifold, at least 100 times उनके power बढ़ा दिए गए. Let us try to understand this. Now what does it say? It says where after the initiation of any proceeding under chapter 12. Now please appreciate initiation. It is initiation of any proceedings. So कोई भी proceeding initiate होता है, इसका मतलब है कि even you when you issue a summon, that is the initiation of a proceeding, and it says where any initiation of the proceeding is done. So you can just imagine, पहले था pending proceedings, now it is initiation of the proceedings. So if a summon is issued under section 70, because that is also a part of these chapters, chapter 12, 14 and 15. So section 67, 68, those were included earlier also. Section 67 was included, but now they are including section 68 also. They are including section 69, 70. So 70 may, I'm just giving an example. Let me first read this and then I'll give you an example and try to explain. Where after the initiation of any proceeding under chapter 12, chapter 14 or chapter 15, the commissioner is of the opinion that for the purpose of protecting the interest of the government, for the purpose of the commissioner is of the opinion that for the purpose of protecting the interest of the government, revenue it is necessary so to do, he may, by order in writing, attach provisionally any property, including bank account, belonging to the taxable person or any person specified in subsection 1 capital A of section 122 in such manner as may be prescribed. Now see the impact. Now let us try to understand the impact of this. I'm not going into what is in chapter 12, 13, 14 and 15. I'll just say that one of the chapters is a starting from section 67, which was already there, a part of section 83. Now what they have done is section 68 को भी include कर दिया, meaning thereby अगर आपकी गाड़ी कहीं पे पकड़ी जा रही है, गुड्स और व्हीकल को डिटेन कर लिया गया है, आपको नोटिस इशू किया गया है, आप सामने से जाके पेमेंट नहीं कर रहे हैं या आप कोर्ट में चले गए हैं, दे कैन अटैच योर बैंक अकाउंट, दे कैन अटैच योर प्रॉपर्टीज बिकॉज नाउ दैट सेक्शन इज देयर. सेक्शन 69 में दे आर अरेस्टिंग यू, अरेस्ट करने के बावजूद भी वो आपका बैंक अकाउंट को अटैच कर सकते हैं बिकॉज द प्रोसीडिंग हैज ऑलरेडी बीन इनिशिएटेड. सेक्शन 70 में समन इशू करते हैं. Even after the issuance of summon, as soon as they will issue this summon, it is said that the proceeding is initiated. And once the proceeding is initiated, you will be covered under this amended provision because now it says after the initiation of any proceedings. So they have initiated the proceedings and now they can attach your bank account and the properties. Now, please bear in mind, let us read the last line once again. Or any person is specified in subsection 1A of section 122. Do you know who are those persons? Those are those persons जहाँ पे कोई एलिगेशन है फेक इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट लेने का और ये एलिगेशन है कि आप उसके बेनिफिशियरी हैं, सेक्शन 122 1A. तो ऐसा कोई भी व्यक्ति जिसके ऊपर ये एलिगेशन है दैट ही हैज derived benefit out of that particular transaction which is deemed to be a transaction of bogus purchases or bogus credits, then in that case after the amendment of this particular provision, if any proceedings is started or initiated against you in any of these chapters, like अगर आपको केवल समन भी दिया गया, I am of the very blunt view that if such person who is covered in 122 1A has been sent a summon by the department, then it will be deemed that the proceeding has already been started in one of the chapters which is specified in the amended provision. Then in that case, I'm afraid even the properties of that person can be attached. So therefore, काफ़ी जगह पे deliberations होते थे कि क्या चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट की प्रॉपर्टीज अटैच हो सकती हैं, क्या चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट के बैंक अकाउंट अटैच हो सकते हैं. I'll not be commenting on that because the time will not permit to come to me to comment on that. But yes, prima facie, if you see the provision of the law, the way and the manner in which it is proposed to be amended, or rather it is amended, yes, I am afraid that even the property of any professional or any person who is getting any benefit or retaining any benefit from such transactions can be certainly attached, including the bank account, not only the properties but also the bank account. Moving to, so now you all can understand and appreciate that the way this is proposed to be amended, or this is amended, this provision is amended but not implemented very soon. They will be implementing also, because once it is ratified by all the states, it is going to see the light of the day by way of a notification. So once it is implemented, the draconian provision as per the Supreme Court of India is going to be much more draconian than what it is today. Section 116 of the Finance Act. In Section 107, which deals with the appeals to the First Appellate Authority of the GST Act, in subsection 6, the following proviso shall be inserted. Subsection 6 deals with the pre-deposit. And what is pre-deposit under GST law? Pre-deposit is that once you approach the First Appellate Authority, whatever liability you have admitted, you will have to pay the 100% of that liability. Whatever liability you are disputing, you will have to pay 10% as a pre-deposit. So minimum 10%, and then only you will be able to file the appeal. Then only your appeal will lie before the First Appellate Authority. So they are inserting this proviso in that particular section which deals with the pre-deposit. It says, provided that no appeal shall be filed against an order of subsection order under subsection 3 of section 129, which deals with the penalty in case the goods is intercepted, detained, एंड द पेनल्टी इज इम्पोज, यानी ट्रांजिट के अंदर जब भी पकड़ा जाएगा आपका गुड्स या व्हीकल और उसके ऊपर कोई पेनल्टी लगेगी तो 129(3) में होगी. सो इफ यू आर गोइंग अगेंस्ट दैट ऑर्डर before the appellate authority, then no appeal shall be filed against an order under subsection 3 of section 129 unless a sum equal to 25% of the penalty has been paid by the appellant. Meaning thereby, for rest of the cases, it is 10%, but for a case under section 129(3), it is 25%. But again, practically, this will never be a situation wherein I'll file an appeal against the order of this and the vehicle or conveyance is still there. ये कभी नहीं होगा. हमेशा यही होगा कि मैं व्हीकल छुड़ा लूंगा, 100% पेनल्टी भर दूंगा, और अदर फ्रॉम दिस अमेंडमेंट दे आर मेकिंग इट 200%, वो पेनल्टी में भर दूंगा, उस पर डिस्प्यूट अराइज करूंगा, एंड देन आई विल अप्रोच द ऑनरेबल कोर्ट या अपीलेट अथॉरिटी. So this situation is also seems to be very difficult, because they will give you a time limit of 7 days, 14 days, within which the amount has to be paid. If you fail to make the payment, then they can start confiscation and all those activities also. So generally you will pay within that date. और अपील फाइल करके इतनी जल्दी आपको ऑर्डर मिले और आप अपील फाइल कर लें, वो भी प्रैक्टिकली थोड़ा सा डिफिकल्ट है, बिकॉज आप कितने दिन तक अपना व्हीकल या गुड्स को डिटेन्ड वे में रख सकते हैं या रखना चाहेंगे. सो प्रैक्टिकली आई डोंट थिंक कि बहुत ज़्यादा इम्प्लीकेशन होगा इस पर्टिकुलर अमेंडमेंट का, बिकॉज 100% ऑलरेडी हम भर चुके होंगे. नाउ मूविंग टू सेक्शन 129. सेक्शन 129 में दे हैव मेड अ वेरी वेलकम चेंज, वेर इन जो डिस्प्यूट था, पहले डिस्प्यूट था कि दे वर आस्किंग फॉर टैक्स अलॉन्ग विद इंटरेस्ट, अलॉन्ग विद पेनल्टी, सॉरी. So they were imposing 100 the tax and 100% of penalty of the to the equivalent amount of tax. Now what amendment has been done in this Finance Act 2021 is कि वो उन्होंने बोला ठीक है, आपको इशू है ना कि आप टैक्स दोबारा नहीं भरना चाहते, no worries, we'll delete that, and now will, in spite of 100% of tax, we'll make it 200%. That is what they have done. So they have deleted that tax along with 100% of the amount equivalent to tax. They have made it 200% of the amount as penalty. So in fact that is more difficult for us to comply with now, क्योंकि 100% टैक्स लेते थे तो मैं क्रेडिट से भी भर सकता था, लेकिन अभी 200% पेनल्टी कर दिया तो एवरी इट इज मैंडेटरी टू बी पेड इन कैश ओनली. Let us see what amendment is. I'll not go into much detail of this because this is something which is self-explanatory. So I'll not be going into details, and I'll not be dwelling into much explanations, because I need to conclude in 5-7 minutes, at the most in 10 minutes, because then I would love to answer queries, and I'll have to leave also because I have another session at 10:45. On payment, clause A I am reading, on payment of penalty equal to 200% of the tax payable on such goods, and in case of exempted goods, on payment of an amount equal to 2% of the value of goods, or 25,000 rupees, whichever is less, where the owner of goods comes forward for payment of such penalty. Earlier it was tax and 100%. Now it is 200% of the tax payable. Clause B, earlier it was 50% of the tax. Now it is 50% of the value of goods, or 200% of the tax payable. So earlier it was 50% of the value, it is okay, or 200% of the tax payable on such goods, whichever is higher. So either 50% of the value or 200% of the tax payable, whichever is higher will be, in case where the owner does not turns around, he is not coming forward, and the amount is to be paid, where the owner of the goods does not come forward for payment of such penalty. Subsection 2 has been omitted because now it is not required. जो subsection 2 था पहले, अब उसका कोई requirement बचा नहीं, so they have deleted it. It is not at all of any relevance, because section 67(6) माल छुड़ाने के लिए 67(6) का जो provision था, that was applicable, made applicable mutatis mutandis. Now it is not applicable because it is mandatory for them to pay and get rid of the this thing. Otherwise, they will have to go for appeal, pay 25%, and then they can get the goods released or the appeal admitted. The following subsection shall be substituted. Subsection 3 is not substituted, and this is something which is very important and an important change. The proper officer detaining or seizing goods or conveyance shall issue a notice within 7 days. Now they will be issuing the notice within 7 days of such detention or seizure, specifying the penalty payable, and thereafter pass an order within 7 days from the date of service of notice for payment of penalty under clause A or B of subsection 1. So please be very clear. Now 7 days they will issue a notice, and then further in 7 days, if you are not making the payment, they will issue the order. And this is the order which needs to be challenged. तो 14 days तो पहले ही आपका गुड्स खड़ा रहेगा, उसके बाद आप अपील फाइल करेंगे, 25% आप प्री डिपॉजिट भरेंगे, तब आपके गुड्स डिपेंड्स है कि वो छूटेंगे. इन सबसेक्शन 4 नो इंटरेस्ट, नो टैक्स इंटरेस्ट और पेनल्टी को सब्सटीट्यूट किया है नो पेनल्टी. Subsection 4. The subsection 4 was that no penalty shall be determined under subsection 3 without giving an opportunity of being heard. So opportunity of being heard needs to be given. And this is subsection 6, which has been substituted. And again, this is very important substitution, where the person transporting any goods or the owner of such goods fails to pay the amount of penalty under subsection 1 within 15 days of the date of receipt of the copy of the order passed under subsection 3. Within 15 days of the order, yani 14 days plus 15 days, the goods or conveyance so detained or seized shall be liable to be sold or disposed of otherwise in such manner and within such time as may be prescribed to recover the penalty payable under subsection 3, provided that the conveyance shall be released on payment by the transporter of penalty under subsection 3 or 1 lakh rupees, whichever is less. So now they have given a leverage, a benefit, an option, a privilege to the transporter. ये लोग हमेशा ट्रांसपोर्टर के फेवर की ही बात करते हैं. So they have given a favor to the transporter कि अगर आपका माल के साथ गाड़ी पकड़ी गई है और जिसके गुड्स हैं वो सामने से नहीं आ रहा है, so you can get your vehicle at least released by making the payment of the amount of penalty और 1 लाख रुपीज विच एवर इज लेस, दोनों में से जो भी होता है वो आप भर दीजिए और अपने व्हीकल को ले जाइए। प्रोवाइडेड फर्दर दिस प्रोविजन इज ऑलवेज देयर कि 15 डेज का जो टाइम है उसको कम किया जा सकता है अगर हजार्डस या ऐसे गुड्स होते हैं जो पेरिशेबल हो। Section 130, again a very, very welcome change, I would say, because 130 was starting with the non-obstant clause, and therefore there was always a confusion that Section 129 be non-obstantive hai, Section 130 be non-obstant hai. Both are starting with notwithstanding. So can both these sections be simultaneously imposed? And there is a very good judgment of Honorable Gujarat High Court, a very detailed judgment. It is Synergy 40 Chem. You can read that judgment, Synergy 40 Chem. It's a wonderful judgment. That judgment was making a distinction when section 139, 129 and 130 can be invoked, whether it can be invoked simultaneously or not. Now what they've done in this amendment is they have removed, they have omitted the non-obstant clause and they have made it where. So notwithstanding anything contained in this act, if they have deleted this and they have made it where. So ab at least section 130 is not an overriding section. So that dispute is settled finally. Uh, 151 I'm skipping, 151, 152. It is. Let's go to 151. Chal. 151 again a major change I would say. What was 151 prior to this amendment? 151 prior to this amendment was collection of statistics. The authority was empowered to call for information and collect the statistics. Power to collect statistics, that was 151. But now they have made it 360-degree change into section 151. और मैं ऐसा बोलूं कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर्स को एक एडिशनल पावर दे हैव गिवन बाय वे ऑफ दिस अमेंडमेंट। एक नया विंडो खोल दिया उन्होंने बाय वे ऑफ दिस अमेंडमेंट। नाउ दिस अमेंडमेंट सेज पावर टू कॉल फॉर इंफॉर्मेशन। Please be attentive for next 2 minutes and try to understand this clause. This is very, 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 very important, I would say. The commissioner or an officer authorized by him may, by order, direct any person to furnish information relating to any matter dealt with in connection with this act within such time, in such form, and in such manner as may be specified therein. So now, see, there are n number of judgments, n number of disputes which relates to the issuance of summons. We argue that unless there is some inquiry proceeding pending, there is some matter pending against me, you cannot issue a summon to me. But now, after the amendment of this law and insertion, rather substitution of section 151, they are not supposed to issue the summon under section 70. वो section 70 में summon issue करेंगे ही नहीं। section 151 में एक लेटर भेज देंगे आपको और बोलेंगे कि we have issued this letter under section 151 and now you are supposed to furnish the information which is asked by us or which is seeked by us. So therefore again I would say बाकी जो changes हैं वो तो ठीक है, okay हैं, but this 151 change is also a draconian change because now anyone and everyone can be sent the letter asking for or the notice calling for the information, and you will have to provide the information within the prescribed time limit which is specified in the letter or the notice and in the form and the manner in which they are asking for the details to be submitted. So again I would say it is a tough provision and a harsh provision. So I'm skipping all those things because these are the not the important but the corresponding changes in the statute. So friends, this was all about the amendments which were proposed and which are assented by the Honorable President of India. And now we are waiting for the state assemblies to ratify all these proposed amendments. And once that is done, I'm sure they will come out with a notification of making these provisions or these amendments effective. Now, once again, I would like to thank all the participants for giving the patience hearings and the organizers for giving me this opportunity, although I was not well. And secondly, I was tied up because I am running a series wherein more than 5,000 participants are attending. It is to be started from 11, 10:45, 11 a.m. today. So therefore, I requested the convener to reschedule, or like the timings needs to be adjusted, and he was kind enough to keep this time. I'm really blessed that, not only blessed, I would say I'm honored that so many participants are there at 9 a.m. in the morning on Sunday. This shows the importance of learning in life of every chartered accountant who is practicing in this field. So I'm really overwhelmed. I'm very, very glad that I was made part of this deliberation. Thank you so much. And if any queries are there, I will be very happy to add my views to those queries. Over to you, Anuj bhai.
Yes. Avinash, I
Anuj, I
think
have one query.
we are more thankful and we are more grateful to you, sir, for accepting and accommodating us in spite of your, I think, severely packed and hectic schedule, sir. So we are on the other side very grateful. Yes, Jitin, you have a query. Please, you can
Yeah,
ask to the speaker.
yeah. Avinash sir, thank you very much for accepting our request. And I am also a part of that series that you are going to take for next few days. And I have one question I've raised in the chat box, that suppose today after 3 years, some industry comes to know that classification was wrong, and instead of 12%, 18%, they were charging 12% under different HSN. If after 3 years some party pays that 6% difference with interest, and then he raises the 6% debit note on the party vendor, then whether that person can claim that 6% set off in his this current year return.
Okay.
There are 2 points. One is on their own if they do, and if they do after the department audit is done.
Correct. See, if they are doing on their own, if the department has instructed or the department has pointed out, and then on their own they are making the payment of this additional 6%, and then they are raising a debit note. See, please appreciate, as per section 34, read with 16 subsection 4, debit note has no time limit. You can issue a debit note anytime and every time. So whenever a debit note is issued, you can take credit of that. So in your case, you can raise a debit note today pertaining to that invoice, and the credit can be taken. This is my view.
So since
But
last
yes,
3 years he can do at one in the one debit note
yes,
only
yes,
for
as
all
per
the
me,
bills.
yes, as
And
per
in
me,
the
yes.
turnover, in the return, they are writing in the turnover as 1 rupee, because we have to write some turnover amount also. So we cannot
Yes,
write turnover again.
I understand, but actually, I'm not into
Okay.
compliance. I'm not aware
Okay.
ki
Okay.
how practically it will be done.
Yeah.
But as per me, legally, you are allowed, because Section 31, 34 does not have any time restriction for debit notes to be issued. Number
But
one.
if the audit is done by the department, then it is on that basis
Yes,
of that
I'm
audit.
coming to that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm coming to that. If a
Okay.
notice is issued under Section, let's say 74,
Okay.
then in that case, Section 17, subsection 5 restricts you. Because 17.5 says that if any tax is paid under section 74, or a notice issued under section 74, or under section 129 or 130, then the credit will not be allowed. So in
Okay.
your case, if voluntarily we are going ahead and paying the tax, then I am sure the credit will be allowed on the basis of debit notes which is being issued. And in case it is after the issuance of the show cause notice, then I am afraid the credit will not be allowed.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Avinash, only two questions I think which members have raised. I will quickly address them and then we can move
Sure.
on to the concluding part. One is from Miss Ruchika Tendulkar, that whether issuance of show cause notice give power under Section 83 to attach properties.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that makes the proceedings pending. See, if I read the provision today, the provision says that when there is any proceeding pending under section 62, 63, 64, 73 or 74. So 62, 63, 64, 67 में तो नहीं है, 73, 74 में है. So one shows, and when is the proceeding set to be pending under section 74? As per me, when the show cause notice is issued. Now, since in this case, as per your query, the show cause notice is already issued. And since the show cause notice is issued, I am of the view that yes, section 83 can be invoked if the commissioner is of the opinion that it is necessary to do so.
All right. Then there
Anuj,
is,
one more question. Anuj,
yes.
sir, one more question. Jiten Mehta here.
Yes,
See,
yes.
nowadays, we file our GST returns from CA's office using the client's digital signature. IP address is ours. So, in some cases, if the client says that I don't know, they have uploaded the return without my knowledge, and the IP address is it is technical. IP address says that it is of the CA's office. So, whether it is advisable to file return from our office or it should be filed digitally signed from their office. This is just a technically, if some cases crop up. So,
I
if the
am
client
aware,
says
sir.
that,
I am
yeah.
aware in Bombay, even chartered accountants are arrested because of this. Because the allegation is that the client will always say that I was not aware. हम तो सर पूरा ट्रस्ट करते हैं अपने चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट पे, और जो भी करता है हमारा चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट करता है. दिस इज द स्टेटमेंट, a fixed statement which has to be given by, or which is given by the taxpayer or the client. Now the precaution that can be taken, see, it started from 2006, sir, when digital signature was introduced. And I, being part of the TCS at that point in time, I was always taking sessions and I was always deliberating that never keep any digital signature of any of your clients. It is always dangerous. But now it is more dangerous because the systems are now more prominent and it is completely online. So what I would recommend is keep have the digital signature at the place of the client. Fill up the form if it is possible. I'm not sure how it is happening. Fill up the form, ask the client to sign it digitally and upload it. You can upload from your office, that is not an issue, but it has to be signed at the place of the client. In case that is not possible, send a message mail to him with the form filled, with the details. Ask him to verify that by way of a digitally signed mail. He can send a digital signed mail to you, and then on the basis of that digital signed mail, you can attach his signature and upload it. That is not an issue. Then you can safeguard yourself. Just have an instruction in that mail that I am sending you this mail. I have approved all the parameters, all the figures and facts that you have stated, and now I allow you to file this return from your good office. That will be sufficient so as to safeguard you from any legal action against your office.
Because of this draconian laws, now they are catch starter accountant first, then the client.
Yes,
That
sir,
is the
I'm aware.
problem.
I'm
Yeah.
aware, sir, and we'll have to hold very strongly against this. और बहुत cautious रहना पड़ेगा, sir. Otherwise, we are going to be in trouble.
क्लाइंट को बाद में पकड़ते, बोलता सीए ने आइडिया दिया, सीए को पहले पकड़ो या एडवोकेट को पहले, ऐसा है.
Sir,
That is the case. Yeah.
in Surat recently, last week 11th को ही एक chartered accountant release हुए हैं. He was behind the bars for almost 1.5 months,
Yes.
irrespective of the fact that he was not at all involved in any of such instances. Just the matter was that his office was involved in applying for registration for that client. So this
Yeah.
is so unfortunate.
Okay, Anu, next question. You can take.
Yes. I think we are already approaching 10:30, and then in the interest of time, now I request Pranav to
If any
present the
query is
vote
there,
of.
you can go. Please go ahead. If any query is there, I will be happy to answer that. No worries.
Okay, so there is one more query in that case. It is raised by Mr. Nitin Puria, and the query is: in case of a cooperative society, is it better to take voluntary registration now or to wait for a notification?
No. You see, the term business was already defined in clause 17 of section 2 of the CGST. When we read the term business, business already included that members and the association इनके बीच में कोई transaction होगा तो it is a business. So don't wait for any notification to come, because it is a retrospective amendment from 1st July 2017. It is going to be impacted. If waiting for a notification will take another 8 months or 6 months, then you will be losing on interest part. If any liability is there, get registration immediately, because this law is anyway is going to come unless it is challenged before the honorable courts and it is struck down. तो आप तब तक वेट मत करें, आप रजिस्ट्रेशन ले लें और जो भी टैक्स पेमेंट्स है वो टैक्स पेमेंट्स करने लग जाएं. बाद में जब डिपार्टमेंट ऑडिट करेगा या कोई एलिगेशन करेगा, विल फाइट फॉर द इंटरेस्ट एंड पेनल्टीज.
All right, got it. Yes.
Sir, one more question from the someone. That this annual return below 1.5 crores, they are saying it is deemed to be filed if you are not filing. So in that case, if you when you see the auto drafted annual return, if there is some error, so it is advisable to correct and file the annual return, or if it is deemed to be filed, then it will be a wrong return.
There are two ways that it can be managed. One is you can amend, you can correct and file it. Otherwise is if it is not accepting, because I have come across some of the queries wherein they are saying that it is not been accepted on the portal. So what you can do is you can prepare the corrected return, identify the errors in the return which is being reflected or auto generated, prepare the corrected return and submit it manually to the offices. Any of the methodology can be adopted.
Okay.
All right. I think one last question is whether a penalty can be levied under Section 129, subsection 1, subclause A, subclause B, for a vehicle carrying on only exempt goods.
Yes, it is a provision in the law. They can impose that penalty, but the amount is restricted. It is 25,000 at the most or 2%. So up to that extent, the penalty can certainly be levied.
All right. I think we have as in addressed all the questions raised by the members in the chat box. So now I hand over to
Anuj,
Pranav.
one more question. Anuj, excuse me. One more question from the only last question, sir.
Please go ahead.
This, yeah, one proprietor concern where proprietor is expired and that goods of were given to that legal hire, it was transferred to legal hire as per will. The proprietor has claimed that set off in his this books, and now the legal hire has sold that goods and paid the total tax. They have not claimed the set off. So is it allowed, or that proprietor the stock he has to again pay that and then that person has to claim the set off?
What I understand from the question is that
Yeah,
what I understand is that the proprietor was running a proprietorship firm. He expired, and the entire business as a going concern is now transferred to the legal heir. And whatever was the stock is not supplied by the legal heir to someone else, and the tax has been paid. Correct?
But what they are saying is that proprietor legal heir has started his own this proprietor, new proprietor in the same.
No worries, no worries. There is a provision under Section 18 which says if there is any constitution change, if there is any change because of the transfer, because of the death, is included in that. So death of a proprietor is certainly included in Section 18. You need to fill one form, that is ITC 02, if I'm not wrong, which is to be certified by a chartered accountant. This form needs to be filled for the purpose of transfer of the credit balance on the account of the proprietor who has expired to the new account, because the PAN number of the proprietor and the legal heir is changed. So therefore, to the legal heir's account, it needs to be changed. It needs to be transferred by virtue of this form. If I'm not wrong, it is ITC 02, which needs to be filled as per Section 18 of the CGST.
But what they have written is this ITC was already claimed by the proprietor. It was fully claimed.
Therefore,
I'm
saying that the ITC which was already claimed might be there in the electronic credit ledger balance of the proprietor. This can be transferred to the electronic credit ledger of the new proprietor or the legal heir.
Okay. Now, this ITC, what they have written, what I understand is ITC already claimed and it is already set off against the previous month return. And as on date, there is no ITC in the electronic credit ledger.
So then they will have to pay in cash.
Okay.
They cannot take ITC again once it is already claimed. So they will have to pay that in cash.
Now, that other proprietor, what he's written is other proprietor already paid that on the sale part and he has not claimed the set off again. So is it okay, or
that is absolutely okay. That is absolutely okay. He cannot claim the set off again because that has already been claimed by his father or
the previous. So now the ES that other party has already paid full amount. So it is okay, right, sir?
Yes.
As per your view? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Anuj. You can now conclude. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for accepting our request and sparing your time. And I will be part of your this another series also.
Please, sir.
Thanks, sir. Thank you very much. Anuj, you can take care of it.
Yes. Before that, I think Rajendra bhai just have one small query. Rajendra bhai, if you would want to ask.
Please go ahead.
Avinash one bank account is attached under
Yes.
section 83 or 87, and 1 year is already passed. How to get it activated?
So there are various judgments with
Hmm.
wherein they say that as per section 83, the time limit is 6 months. Then after 6 months, they will have to again reevaluate, or they will have to extend the attachment for another 6 months maximum. So maximum attachment can be 1 year. Now I'll be requesting you write a letter to the officer, to the jurisdictional officer or the commissioner. Then since 1 year has already been expired, do you have any other further reasons to reattach the account? Because see, as per the judgment of the Honorable High Court of Bombay itself, they have said that once 1 year lapses, they will have to deattach or open the bank account attachment. But if they have further reasons to believe on the basis of new evidences or any new further proceedings or whatsoever reason may be, they will have to again reattach the account. That is allowed. So old attachment has to go and new attachment has to come. So you write a letter. If they have any reasons to further believe that yes, the attachment must continue, then yes, they can continue with the attachment. Then the only way out will be to approach the honorable courts and get the account deattached.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Uh, I think without taking any further time, Pranav,
Yeah.
please request you to
Yes,
proceed.
yes, sure.
Thanks to Dr.
Yeah,
Arun.
yeah. Keeping in mind his prior commitments, I would just like to keep this short. Thank you so much, Avinash sir, for enlightening us on this crucial topic. So like when you read, every one of us reads the Finance Act, but we just understand the meaning of what it's saying. Today, you've made us understand the implications of it, and I think that is what is most important. Like it opens a different perspective in one's mind. For example, the thing you said about GST audits, everyone was of the mindset that it's a huge revenue loss for our profession. But then when you made us realize that on the other hand, there is self-certification wherein the amount of work, the scope of the work is probably increased and the risk has reduced. And I think that will those are the implications that no one has ever thought of. So I think this was a very enlightening session for us, and I personally really appreciate, and I'm pretty sure everyone appreciates how you've used the Bare Act instead of a presentation. Like this was something different out of the box, and when you read the bare law, it gives you a better understanding and hold of the section and the legal implications. So I think that was something really well done, and we hope that you would come to the Matunga Study Circle to give lectures in the future as well. Thank you
Anytime.
so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I take the lead?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.